But people tell me you need to focus on your goal. And I say no. I say you need to focus on your disciplines. And if you focus on your disciplines that come from expert counsel, you're going to get to the goal. That's the secret. How you can be the greatest salesperson on the planet.
Welcome to the Rethink Sales Show. My name is Derek Kelly. I am joined by Jim Shorkey and special guest Bruce Berk. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us. Bruce is a testimony to the Rethink You process that we teach. You actually gave testimonials in our Rethink You 2.0 course. So for those of you guys who have not seen that course yet, we'll put a link below. Check that out. It's such a phenomenal program. But Bruce, we just wanted to bring you on to hear your story. I just know you've told us so much about how this process has changed your life. So guys, stay tuned. You're going to hear impactful moments from Bruce about just how his life has been changed. And subscribe, please. Again, Jim always says this, but we want to hear one more story. So we hope that Bruce's story encourages you to go after the mission and rethink sales. So Bruce.
And can I interrupt?
Yes.
The stories, for me at least, for Jim Shorkey, the stories are why I do what I do. The stories. I love the stories. It's really neat to hear somebody say, yeah, the day that I got involved with this program is the day my life changed. And that's very rewarding to me. I had one of those experiences yesterday, and it's very rewarding. So that's why we do it. We do it for the stories.
Yeah. So tell us, what does this process look like? Take us back to the beginning. When did you get introduced to Chuck and Jim and Rethink You and myself? And what does that process look and how is it? Anyways, start there and we'll jump in.
It's great. The story is great. I had taken my car to get serviced. I've known Jim for, I don't know when I didn't know Jim.
Forever.
Right? So I've known Jim forever. And so I needed my car to be serviced, and I took it in, and the next day or two, and it was fine. The next day or two, Jim's son told Jim that I had Think and Grow Rich in my car, and it was all beat up. So he called me right away. Even though we've known each other, we didn't know we were reading
just to be clear
similar
about knowing
book.
each other. I did business as a young boy with Bruce's grandfather.
Wow.
And I did business as a young car salesman with Bruce's dad. And then I did business with Bruce's dad for years, and then I did business with Bruce. So I've known these guys
for
I
generations.
never bought a suit anywhere but from Berk's Menswear. That's their company. And it is a 100-year-old company, 108 years old, 100 years old.
So Jim called me shortly after, and we just started discussing the book, and it was great. And then Jim stepped away from the business, and
So this is about 2016 timeframe. Yep.
right. Yeah, it was around 2016. Actually, I think it might have been 2014 when we started discuss Think and Grow Rich, because I have a little note, Jim, that
That's cool.
when we started, I remember it was a Sunday morning. But so we started to discuss it, and then Jim and my friend Chuck, we got together and we started to do Rethink You.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's changed the outlook I had, and actually some wonderful successes
Yeah.
as well.
So what does that shift look like? Where do you feel like you were versus where you are? Kind of take me on that 10-year roadmap of like, where were you and how have you seen yourself change as a person?
Where I was probably, 10 years ago, I was in my 50s. I had some early success business-wise.
Yeah.
And once I had these goals checked off because of my earlier success, which was no debt, basically, I was lax.
Yeah. You were plateaued.
I had reached my goals. I had no debt, but I was in my 50s. I still had time to work, of course.
Yeah.
And so I was lackadaisical at business. I just needed to make a certain amount of money, and I'd be fine. And then when Jim and I got together, that really wasn't fine at all.
Yeah.
And Jim helped me focus on what my goals were. He brought them out of me through a lot of emotion, a lot of discussion. Some of it was hard.
Yeah.
Some of it was fun. Some of it wouldn't work. And Jim and I tease about that.
Expand on that, please. You told me.
So one of the so we were at Panera's.
Yes.
And
There's always a Panera connection here.
had been talking for maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and maybe not so much progress. And Jim gave me some ideas. So some of the ideas, so I'm an old retailer. I knew everything. Jim was a retailer too, but not in my very niche world, according to my mind, right? Jim's mind was it's all the same. I sell cars, you sell suits. It's the people that matter.
Yes. Yep.
Which is true.
Yes, it is.
But Jim gave me some ideas, and I was sitting there. I'm a note taker, and I just looked up at Jim and I said, "This is not going to work. You're full of it." And Jim, being Jim, just kept on going. And so maybe I forget how often we were meeting. 3 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. Yeah. So I went back to work and I thought about what Jim said. And some of it was just as simple as standing my ground and knowing my worth.
Yes.
Knowing my worth was really
that's powerful.
Jim was helping me with. There was a lot around it, but knowing my worth. And I remember actually telling him that I knew somebody who was making a lot of money per hour. And Jim's, you could make that much per hour. And I was like, he's in a different profession than me.
Right.
And Jim said, you've been doing this for 30 years. You have the same amount of knowledge in your field as he does in his field. Remember that?
I do, yeah.
So I'm like, wow, that was eye-opening because he was a professional attorney and I sell suits. But anyway, so I did go back to work. I listened to Jim. I started to put into practice 3 of the things that he said.
You're leaving a part out. You're leaving a part out. He told me I was crazy.
Don't get into that.
He's like warming it up, Jim.
I'm warming it up.
He told me I was crazy.
So, yeah.
Been there, done that, heard that many times.
Right.
Steve Gardner.
Yes.
Steve tells the stories. He said he thought I was a nut. He did. He said, I thought I was a nut. And go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
So for our next meeting, we had scheduled meetings, and they were great, and I looked forward to them. Anyway, I went back, and I was humbled because I did what Jim had suggested that I do, and it was very hard. It's very hard to get what you have in yourself conscious. And Jim used to call it a paradigm shift. Yes, I don't know if you still use that.
A paradigm is a pattern way of thinking. Yes, that's what a paradigm is.
So I had to shift that, not change it, shift it. And I did, and it started to work. And Jim gets a nice little smile on his face at Panera again. And he's, who's full of it now?
Oh, that's right. Maybe it was. I'm full of crap. Maybe you didn't. Steve said I was crazy. That's a fact. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah. Who's full of it now? Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah.
And I've had other people who have tried to help throughout my career. And I always looked at why it wouldn't work, because I maybe was not humble enough to know that other avenues work as well. And with this paradigm shift, I was able to see, like, I really knew a lot compared to my industry, but not enough to know everything about how to do my business.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And you'll never know everything. Jim always says that. You'll never know everything.
And I'm out of business, and I'm still learning about my business today.
Yes.
Yeah, it's lifelong learning. And even if you're not going to learn about your particular business right now, by the process of continuing the education, that's so beneficial to your brain and to your body and to your life in general. And so maybe you're not in the business anymore at this time. I know you're not. Could you become a mentor? And so therefore, to be a good mentor, you'd have to
keep learning,
educating yourself and say, boy, I didn't do this, but I just read this great book about how to be a better retailer. And there's some really great ideas. And this is one that I never did. But I think to the mentee, I think you really should put this on your list of things to do. And let's see what happens. And so this person goes to work on it. Holy cow, the needle moves. The needle moves. It keeps moving. That's what, and you remember me telling you that. The needle moves. The needle keeps moving. And so even though you're not in the business anymore, could you become an incredible asset to the world at large by being that business mentor? And there are forums that you can get involved in I'm not asking you to do this, but you and I are both retired.
Yeah.
So that's my brotherly advice to you today, and
I
I've already given it
appreciate
to you.
that. Yeah.
I said, when we were talking, he and I said, this is the podcast, man. We just did the podcast. We should be recording this. It was really cool.
Yeah.
When we were talking about things of this nature. And the last thing that you want to do, Bruce, right now, as your brother, is to retire. You've got to figure out something else. I'm working with Kevin Price. Love Kevin. We've become very tight. And we're working just like me, myself and Bruce. And he's in Florida. Can you even imagine that? He's in Florida. And I got a text from him this morning after our meeting. We meet at 7:30 in the morning. Imagine that. 7:30 in the morning. And we had our meeting like Bruce and I had. And he texted me back after the meeting. He says, I think that was the best meeting yet. And it's, wow, you just made me cry because I'm having impact. That's what I want. I want to have impact on you today. I want to have impact on you today. I don't even know who you are, and I may not ever know who you are. But what if it happened that 10 years from now, you said, going forward, that you say, this is what happened. I got involved in this podcast with Jim Shorkey and Derek Kelly and Bruce Berk, and I listened and I took notes, and it was life-changing.
Yeah.
Changed my life. That's powerful, and that's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I
Bruce,
want to
tell
hear.
us, you told us where you were. How did it change your life? Who did you become? Because we're always on this journey of where we were to who we're becoming. So who did you become in that process?
There was this one lesson that Jim taught me, and I think Jim Rohn might have done this too. It was breaking through the terror barrier.
That's Bob Proctor.
Thank you. That was a lot of it for me. I'd have a lot of great ideas throughout my journey as a retailer, and they were great until I actually had to take action to do them. And then I'd take a step back and only think about the negative things. So they were all positive until I had to do it. And then once I had to actually do it, then all I could think of was, this is why it's not going to work. This is why it's not going to work. And Jim shared with me how to break through the terror barrier, have a good plan, and then start to take action. And this was significant to me, and one of the many things that Jim taught me. I always called it, what's the A to F?
The strategic continuum.
The strategic continuum.
Let me explain real quick. So it's in Rethink You. It's one of the steps. The strategic continuum is on the left side would be F. On the right side would be A+. And so and it's a continuum. Somewhere between F and A+ is where your plan is. So if we have an F plan, we are going to fail. There's no way around it. If we have a C plan, we're going to create mediocre results. If we have an A+ plan, we're going to create great results. So that's the idea. It's called the strategic continuum. So it's all about strategy. The second aspect of the strategic continuum is execution, okay? And so hence the terror barrier. When we get the plan and we decide to move into execution, we tend to freeze. Terror takes over, fear. And so we just talk ourselves out of it, all right? And so if we have an A+ plan and we execute that plan at 50%, we're going to fail. If we have a B+ plan and we execute that plan at 100%, we're going to hit it out of the park. So what I taught Bruce and what I explained to Bruce is, Bruce, we don't need to have the perfect plan. We just need to have a good plan. And the trick is in the execution of said plan. I would much rather have, and my goal actually would be to have a B+ plan. B is good, B+ is good. So that's why we always said B to B+. And by the way, we taught this at the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group. You can Google Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group. I don't know where you're at. Google it, Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group, and just see and understand that company back in 1998, 2 years after my father died, was bankruptcy imminent. That's a fact. A lot of people think I'm full of baloney when I say that. It's a fact. I was there. I had a negative $100,000 in my bank account, and I was in deep trouble. But the rest, we'll leave that off. So anyways, at the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group, we taught the strategic continuum, which means very simply, the better the strategy, the better the results. The better the execution, the better the results. So we want to combine those two. We want to get and by the way, if you get an A+ plan, great. I'm not discouraging you from doing that, but sometimes what happens, Bruce, and I think you'll agree with me on this, is we spend so much time. Did you ever hear of analysis paralysis? We spend so much time trying to make it B plus, trying to make it A minus, trying to make it A. Wait a second, you already got a B plus plan. Let's get to work. Let's break through that terror barrier and let's get to work. And by the way, in Napoleon Hill's book, he tells you in the chapter on desire, there's 6 steps you're supposed to follow, but he tells you to figure out your goal and then what are you willing to give? And even though you don't have that list complete yet, start now on the list. So that's the whole idea. I want to get 10 things on my list. I've got 3 so far. Start to 3. Do the push-ups, do the crunches, do the bodyweight squats. You got 3. Start those and add the jumping jacks and the other stuff after that. But do what you got now. If it's reading 10 pages a day, let's do it. We don't need to wait until the list is done. And I think that's what Bruce is saying. Have I explained that properly?
Absolutely, because I was trying to do the A+ plan. So all I was doing was planning and perfecting this plan.
A+
on
plan,
planning.
10% execution or something.
Taking no action. So once there's certain things that stick to you for all of us, and that stuck to me. A B+ plan executed as close to 100% of the time as I could do it. And that was what started to, as Jim said, move the needle. And so that's what I did. I had a plan, and then we kept on tweaking it and tweaking it. Jim helped me. My staff helped me. I joined a mastermind group. They helped me. The plan became better, and the business became something that actually I couldn't believe where we were able to take it.
You could have never imagined it. Yeah.
Absolutely not. These goals were other people were able to achieve them. I couldn't achieve them, but I did.
You
but
did.
I did
Yes,
achieve.
you did. You're right. You thought you couldn't, and we worked together.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, man. I didn't think I could either. It's like people say it's a dream come true. It's like, it isn't, because I never dreamt it.
Yeah.
It's if you get in, that's why different people will tell me, Bruce, and disagree with me, by the way. Please, both you guys, disagree with me. But people tell me you need to focus on your goal. And I say no. I say you need to focus on your disciplines. And if you focus on your disciplines that come from expert counsel, you're going to get to the goal. That's the secret. It's not the goal. Jim Rohn said this to us. It's not the goal. It's what you become in going for the goal. So we don't focus on the goal. We focus on the disciplines. And disciplines are such that we're going to move towards the goal. And as we move towards the goal, we change. We add more disciplines, and we change, and we add more disciplines, and we change, and we're rewiring our brain. That's what the paradigm shifting is all about. A paradigm is a pattern way of thinking. And if that pattern way of thinking, like the strategic continuum, you need to look this up on Rethink You 2.0, but is a pattern way of thinking. In order for us to improve our results, we need to change the pattern. Hence, the title of the program is, Derek?
Rethink You.
2.0. Okay, and why is it Rethink You 2.0?
Because in order to get the results you want, you have to change the way you think.
Come on, Derek. I want you to go deep. Don't answer questions you think you want me to answer them. Why is it Rethink You 2.0? Just answer that question. You know the answer. Think. Why is it called Rethink You 2.0?
Because it's not Rethink You 1.0.
Okay, so are we using Rethink You to write the program?
Yes.
And what happened?
Rethink You 1.0 was great, but there are places we saw improvement. There are places where we felt like we could have been clearer. We could have had better worksheets. We could have had more prompts to get people moving toward their goals, moving toward their
It's Rethink You
disciplines.
2.0 because it's evolved, because that's what happens. So you changed. That's what the paradigm shift is all about. So your pattern way of thinking became another pattern way of thinking, and another. And perhaps maybe we're at a juncture now with where you're at of maybe it's time to have a new paradigm shift. Is that possible?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Is it
actually.
possible to say, geez, I never thought about that? If it is in fact Think and Grow Rich, if that's the idea, and you can fill in the blank, whatever you want rich to be. But if it is in fact Think and Grow Rich, then the thinking is a very important component of that particular title. And so if we change the thinking, then we can get rich again in a different respect. This is the 162nd time I've read the book. And Napoleon Hill is telling me very clearly to seek expert counsel. Find somebody, massive chill, find somebody who is smarter than you and have a conversation. And you can do that here in this particular forum here, where this is more of a think tank type of a discussion. You can do it one-on-one like Bruce and I did, or you can also do it with a book. You can do it with a video. You can do it with a think tank. Bruce joined a think tank. There's a variety of ways to seek expert counsel. Books, training programs, like Rethink You 2.0, things of that nature. Jim Rohn. You can still be tutored by Jim Rohn today. Isn't that amazing?
It's crazy.
He passed on. Bob Proctor passed on. Napoleon Hill has been dead for years. But guess what? With the beauty of YouTube, YouTube, Napoleon Hill. And do you know that you can listen to a Napoleon Hill speech today? That's freaking awesome. So seek expert counsel to figure out how you're going to get to where you want to get to.
So Bruce, lastly, just share with us and the audience just what other areas were you surprised at change in your life? Or maybe you weren't surprised, but what else? So your business grew, but what else did you see change?
I learned so I read a lot of Stoicism. And one of the phrases is, the obstacle is the way. And that was another thing that was life-changing, because when I would hit some failures or some lack of successes, of course, that's disappointing. And that was my mental way of doing things. Oh, this didn't work. What a shame, right? But then and it's just these simple things like the strategic continuum and the obstacle is the way. Those are things that I can grasp. And so the obstacle is the way, just again, a paradigm shift was, maybe I should be looking for obstacles. Maybe these lack of successes aren't failures. They're just lack of successes at the time.
Information.
Right?
They're information.
So I would take this information once Jim and I started working and I shifted and, okay, this didn't work, but it needs to work. I just have to change my plan. And that's what I did. We worked on the plan. It was either successful and we'd build upon it, or unsuccessful and we'd tweak it.
Yeah.
We wouldn't
It's
really
called a pivot. It's called a pivot.
Yeah. We wouldn't totally change it, but we would pivot from it. And
Spot on.
just
Listen to this guy.
it's just little
star.
things for me that made huge changes in not just my business, in my personal life as well.
Yeah. It's
One
crazy.
of the steps in Rethink You is do simple first. So when you do get your list, is there one thing on it that's easier to do than all the others? Well, let's get that one knocked off first. Let's do that. Do your push-ups. Okay, done. And then what's the next thing? Do simple first, right? Let's get the one done. The first step is always going to be the first step. And let's just worry about the first step first, right? Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
First step first. So Chuck actually made me a T-shirt. I have it. And it's a cherished possession because Chuck has passed. And we love Chuck. And one of our goals when Chuck died, and Chuck and I talked about this, was Chuck lives on through us. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. I was just talking with Darlene this morning.
Oh my God, you're going to make me cry.
And brought up
She's a
Chuck.
lovely lady.
That was
Chuck lives on
Chuck's.
through. Darlene did me a really cool thing. She called me. She called me. She says, Jim, I know the promise you made to Chuck, and I don't want you to worry about feeling like you have to do that. And I said, Darlene, I'm doing it. I'm good. I'm doing it. Chuck Bellina is living today through us. And we can't do this, without bringing Chuck into the picture. We can't do it. Because what happened was Chuck was intrigued, and Chuck interviewed me. He wanted to know exactly how I did what I did. And so he interviewed me, and I gave him the steps, and I gave him the strategic continuum. I can prove it. I wrote it out on a napkin at Panera. I wrote it out for him. I always wrote it. I always hand wrote it, didn't I?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
hand wrote it. I did not have a form. I didn't have it at the dealership either. My brother, I could actually go downstairs right now, get my phone, bring it up her, and show it to you. My brother sent it to me. My brother Russell sent it to me just the other day. And it's my writing, and it's the strategic continuum. Chuck made it formal.
Yeah.
Chuck made it formal. Or maybe Derek. I did not.
Yeah.
Continue.
Bruce, thank you for just sharing that journey. I'm sure we'll have you on for future episodes, but just thank you for talking about just that change that you've had. And really, it seemed like a lot of mindset shifts, right? Paradigm shifts that really, they were simple tweaks to the methodology, to the thinking, to the practice that ended up making you really change a lot of your trajectory, right?
Rethink You 2.0 now. It works. And just a suggestion for those of you who are willing to take the step and try Rethink You 2.0, don't fight it like I did in the beginning. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. You'll see your life will change for the better, hopefully more rapidly than it did for me. Do it. You have nothing to lose. The information is out there. Listen to these podcasts, and Jim and Derek, they have so much knowledge and they're willing to share it. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I'd like to close it off with this thought. It's not what it costs you to do the program. And I want Bruce to finish. It's not what it costs you to do the program. It's what it costs you if you don't do the program. And Bruce, don't share the number, but I want you to think about a number that if you and I hadn't hooked up and you hadn't done what I asked you to, don't tell me, don't tell the audience. What would it have cost you had you not done what we talked about doing?
I'll tell
just
you.
put it in your brain. Don't tell me the number. I don't want you to put you on the spot there. But can you put a
it's
number
fine.
in your brain?
I'll tell you what it would have cost me, and it has nothing to do with a number. The number was just something that was maybe more of an ego thing. But I wouldn't have the freedom that I have today, and that's what it would have cost me. Being able to retire gives me the freedom to do this, which I wouldn't have
That's huge.
had, because even though we have done this before, it was like I had 43 minutes, not 44. 3, because I had to get back to my clients that's what the whole thing was, for my clients. And so now I have the freedom to come and do this. I have grandchildren across the country. I get to visit them.
Wow.
So doing it gave me freedom, not the money. The money's great, and it's just, what would you call it, Jim? Just a reflection on how
It's the
you
icing-
did this year.
It's the icing on the
Yeah,
cake. It's the icing.
but it doesn't, the money gives you the freedom to be able to enjoy and meet new people.
Yeah.
And that's the best
Yeah.
part of this for me.
But I do want to focus on a number from the perspective. I think a lot of folks in the crowd here need to make more money. I think there's a significant number to do.
Absolutely. And I did too.
All I want you to I don't want you to give me a number. But I want you, is it a small, medium, large, mega large? How would you categorize that number that it would have cost you? Because, by the way, money is a great way to keep track. Just like the
Yeah.
scale when you weigh yourself. It's a great way to keep track of what's going on. It's a result. Money is information, okay? I'm either doing good or I'm doing bad or whatever. It's information. So how big would that number have been had you not done what we talked about doing?
It would have been a huge number, because
There you go.
it would have been altering.
Yeah, a lot of money. And
Yeah,
so
a
if
lot of
that's what
money.
appeals to you is making more money, then we need to have this conversation much deeper. I can tell you I'm working with my good friend. Hopefully Kevin doesn't mind me sharing his name. Love this guy. We've become very, very good friends via Zoom. I never met the guy. Derek connected me with Kevin.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that he is having a record month. He's in sales. He's having a record month, and he's going to have a record year. We've only been talking for, what, a couple months now?
Yeah, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I think 2, even 2. Anyways, he's having a record month, and he's having a record year because he's doing so well. And guess who also had a record sales month when we hooked up? Chuck Bellina.
I did too.
That's how this whole thing started. Chuck had heard that I was retired. Chuck had heard what I was attempting to do, and he said, I got a massive chill right now. I don't know about you guys, but man, massive chill. He said, would you mentor me? Would you coach me? I think it was coach was the word he used. And so I said, yes, I would. And we started doing it. And his sales went, I don't know, were they doubled? Some goofy number. Like,
It was
went through
3x. It was 3x.
went through the roof. And Chuck was such a wonderful human being and such an enthusiastic guy. He said, I think we got something here. I didn't know Derek from a cake of soap. I didn't.
Yeah.
But that's how this works.
Yeah.
See, if we didn't take the first step, okay, there would be no podcast. I didn't, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You came in, you were in my dining room.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting around a table. Did we talk about a podcast?
Not once.
Did we talk about videos?
Not once.
The only
We
videos
talked about a
was,
course.
Was a course, yeah.
Yeah.
But we did not. And I was working, if you remember, I was working with Sarah Macon at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing. Everybody that I work with, if they do, I was in a group yesterday, a think tank type group. It's a networking group. And I told him, I said, this is going to sound self-serving, it's going to sound arrogant. I said, but I am an expert on how to be successful. I am an expert on goal achievement. I'm not a novice. I am an expert. And I said to this group, I said, if you do what I tell you to do, you're going to hit it out of the park. I know what I'm talking about. I've done the research. I've done the studying. I'm an expert. And I am. And so is Derek, and so is Bruce now, because now he knows it, just like I learned it, and I felt compelled that I needed to, and that's why we're here.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Jim. Again, like and subscribe. Comment what was the most impactful moment